Dad Quiet Revenge. On Thanksgiving morning, my daughter-in-law, Rachel, stood in my kitchen doorway with her arms crossed and said, "Mason, I need you to pack your things and be out by Sunday. This house is worth $485,000, and Dylan and I have already spoken to a realtor. I'm Mason Brooks, 58 years old, and I've lived in this house for 27 years. I was pulling my turkey from the oven when she said it, the same turkey I'd been cooking every Thanksgiving since my wife Linda passed 14 months ago. The same kitchen where we'd raised our son Dylan, where Linda had kissed me goodbye every morning for 26 years before the cancer took her. I set the roasting pan on the counter, turned to look at Rachel's perfectly made-up face, her designer coat that probably cost more than my monthly utility bills, and I said the only thing that came to mind. Okay, just that. Okay. Rachel blinked. I think she expected arguments, maybe some old man tears, possibly some dramatic collapse that would make her feel powerful. Instead, I wiped my hands on my workshop apron and nodded. "I'll start packing tomorrow," I continued calmly. "The turkey will be ready in about 20 minutes if you'd like to try it before the guests arrive." She stared at me like I'd spoken in another language. Then she recovered, smoothed her already smooth blonde hair, and said, "Dylan and I don't eat refined carbs anymore. And honestly, Mason, you should consider your health at your age. Assisted living facilities have excellent meal programs. Assisted living, I was 58, not 88. I still worked part-time consulting for engineering firms. I played golf twice a week. I maintained this entire half-acre property myself, including the workshop I'd built in the garage where I crafted furniture and repaired everything from neighbors' lawnmowers to antique clocks. But I didn't say any of that. I just smiled and said, "I'll look into it." What Rachel didn't know, what nobody knew, was about to change everything. The guests started arriving at 200. My dining room table was set for 14 people around the solid oak table I'd built myself 15 years ago. I'd spent 2 days cooking. Turkey with herb stuffing made from Linda's recipe, mashed potatoes with real butter, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce from scratch, sweet potato pie, and pumpkin pie from the recipe Linda's mother had passed down. Dylan arrived first with Rachel and their daughter Chloe, who was 6 years old and wearing a dress that looked like it cost more than my monthly grocery budget. My granddaughter used to run straight to my workshop when she visited, eager to see what project Grandpa was building. Today, Rachel held her hand firmly and steered her toward the living room. "Say hello to Grandpa Mason," Rachel instructed in that voice she used when she wanted to appear polite in front of others. "Hello, Grandpa Mason," Chloe repeated, then looked up at her mother for approval. My heart squeezed. When had my granddaughter started treating me like a stranger she needed permission to talk to? My sister Dana arrived next with her husband Cole, then Dylan's cousins from Linda's side. The neighbors from across the street, the Walshes, who'd been coming to our Thanksgiving for 8 years since they moved into the neighborhood. Nicole Walsh always brought her famous cornbread, and her husband Jared never missed a chance to talk shop about the classic Mustang he was restoring in his garage. 14 people filling my home with noise and laughter and the smell of good food. 14 people who had no idea that Rachel had just told me I was being evicted from my own house. I moved through the afternoon like I was running a complex engineering project, serving food with precision, refilling drinks, asking about jobs and grandchildren. My engineering background had taught me to stay calm under pressure, to gather information before making decisions. Dana kept giving me concerned looks across the crowded living room. My sister always could read me, but I smiled and dodged her questions. Rachel, I noticed, had positioned herself at the head of the table. My seat, the seat I'd occupied every Thanksgiving since Linda and I moved into this house in 1997. The same year Dylan graduated high school, she was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater that probably came from some boutique where they serve you champagne while you shop. Her diamond earrings caught the light every time she moved her head. She looked expensive, polished, perfect. She looked like she already owned the place. "Mason," she called out as I was setting the cranberry sauce on the table, using the crystal dish Linda's grandmother had given us as a wedding present. "Dylan and I have an announcement." The room quieted. Forks paused midair. Dylan looked uncomfortable, shifting in his chair like he wanted to be anywhere but here. He was my son, my only child, and I could still read every expression on his 43-year-old face. He looked like a man who'd been backed into a corner. As most of you know, Rachel continued, her voice carrying that practiced smoothness of someone who'd rehearsed this moment in front of a mirror. "Linda passed away last year. It's been incredibly difficult for all of us, especially for Mason." She said my name like she was talking about a charity case. Some unfortunate soul who needed their pity and guidance. "Mason has been so strong," Rachel went on, gesturing toward me with her manicured hand, "but Dylan and I have been concerned about him living alone in this big house. It's too much for someone his age. The maintenance, the yard work, all those stairs to the second floor." I watched people nod sympathetically. The Walshes exchanged glances. Nicole frowned into her wine glass. Dana's face was already turning red with anger. "So," Rachel said, reaching over to squeeze Dylan's hand in what looked like a supportive gesture, "we've made the decision to help Mason transition into a more appropriate living situation. We've been looking at some wonderful assisted living communities that specialize in active seniors." The silence that followed was Arctic cold. "What exactly are you saying?" Dana's voice cut through the room like a precision blade. Rachel's smile didn't waver, but I caught a flash of irritation in her eyes. "We're saying that Dylan and I are going to take over the house. We've already spoken to a realtor about the property value. It's worth $485,000 in the current market, and we think it's the perfect size for our growing family. Chloe needs more space to play, and we're hoping to give her a sibling soon." "Take over," Dana repeated slowly, her voice dropping to a dangerous level. "You mean buy?" Well, Rachel laughed lightly, waving her hand like she was dismissing a minor detail. "It's a family house. We're keeping it in the family. And of course we'll help Mason find a nice place. There's a lovely facility called Sunset Manor that has studio apartments for seniors. Does Mason want to move?" This was Nicole Walsh, who'd always been direct to the point of bluntness, and whom I'd always secretly appreciated for it. Rachel's smile finally slipped just a fraction. "It's not about want, Nicole. It's about what's realistic. Mason can't maintain a house like this on his own. He's getting older, and these big properties require constant upkeep." "I'm sitting right here," I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. I was standing by the kitchen doorway with a serving spoon still in my hand, and I realized this was the first time I'd spoken since Rachel's announcement began. "I'm sitting right here," I repeated, "and I can speak for myself." Rachel's face flushed slightly. "Of course, Mason. I'm just trying to help. You know, you can't afford this house on your own." There it was, the assumption that had been building for 14 months ever since Linda died. The assumption that I was helpless, that I'd never handled finances, that I was just an old man waiting to be managed by his more capable daughter-in-law. "You're probably right," I said, and watched Rachel's face brighten with victory. "This house is a lot of work." "Exactly." Rachel beamed, looking around the table like she'd just solved world hunger. "See, Mason understands. He's being so reasonable about this." I turned to walk back into the kitchen, then paused and looked over my shoulder. "I'll need a few weeks to arrange things, though. There's quite a bit to handle. Paperwork and such, of course," Rachel said graciously, spreading her hands like she was being incredibly generous. "We're not monsters. Take until Christmas." "That gives you almost a month." Christmas. She was giving me until Christmas to pack up 27 years of my life and hand over the house Linda and I had built together. I went back into the kitchen and started cutting the pumpkin pie. My hands were steady as a rock. My mind was very, very clear. Behind me, conversation slowly resumed. Someone tried to change the subject to football. The Walshes made their excuses and left early, and I caught the look of disgust on Jared's face as they headed for the door. They'd been Linda's friends first, and their faces had been full of outrage at Rachel's announcement. I brought out both pies. Rachel, despite her comment about refined carbs, ate 2 pieces of the pumpkin pie and made a show of complimenting my baking skills in front of everyone. By 600, everyone had gone home except Dana, who'd sent Cole ahead and stayed behind to help me clean up. She waited until we heard his car pull out of the driveway before she turned on me. "Mason," she said, and there was steel in her voice. What the hell was that? I was washing dishes at the sink, watching the soap bubbles catch the last light from the window that looked out over my workshop. In the fading afternoon sun, I could see my tool collection through the garage windows, the workbench where I'd built Chloe's dollhouse last Christmas, the riding mower that kept my half-acre property looking like something out of a magazine. "That was Rachel showing her hand," I said, "scrubbing a plate with mechanical precision. And you just said, okay." Dana's voice was climbing toward fury. "Mason, she can't just take your house, can't she?" I turned to look at my sister. She was 61, 3 years older than me, and her face was red with anger on my behalf. "I'm a widower. Dylan's my only heir. The house is worth almost $500,000. Why wouldn't she think she can take it? Because you're alive." Dana threw the dish towel down on the counter so hard it made a slapping sound. "Because it's your house. Because you raised her ungrateful husband and put him through college and helped them buy their first car." She stopped, breathing hard like she'd been running. "Mason, what are you going to do?" I dried my hands carefully on the workshop apron I was still wearing and folded it over the counter. "I'm going to pack," I said. "You're giving up just like that?" I didn't say that. Dana stared at me for a long moment, then slowly, very slowly, she smiled. It was the same smile she'd had when we were kids, and she was about to get me in trouble for something I hadn't done yet. "You have a plan." I didn't say that either, but you do. "Oh my God, Mason, you have that look." You had that same look when the city tried to rezone our neighborhood in 2018, and you spent 6 months fighting them with engineering reports and property law research. What are you planning? I took her hands in mine. They were smaller than Linda's had been, but they had the same strength. Dana had been the one who held our family together when our parents died, the one who made sure I finished engineering school, the one who introduced me to Linda at that company picnic back in 1995. I need you to trust me. I said, can you do that? My sister looked at me for a long moment, studying my face like she was reading blueprints. What do you need? I need you to not ask questions for 2 weeks. Can you do that? 2 weeks? Maybe 3? And then I said, and I felt something shift inside me like a machine clicking into gear, we'll have another family dinner. Dana kissed my cheek and left. I locked the door behind her and walked through my house in the gathering darkness. I didn't turn on any lights. I walked through rooms I'd walked through thousands of times, rooms where Linda and I had built a life together. The living room where Dylan had learned to walk, stumbling between the couch and coffee table while Linda and I cheered him on. The hallway where we'd hung his school photos every year, watching him grow from a gap-toothed kindergartner to a serious high school graduate. The master bedroom where Linda had died peacefully in her sleep with my hand in hers, just like she'd asked. Rachel thought this was just a house worth $485,000. She had absolutely no idea what was coming. I went into what used to be Linda's home office. I still thought of it as her space, even though she was gone. The room smelled faintly of her perfume, though that was probably my imagination. I sat at her desk, a beautiful cherry wood piece I'd built for her 10th anniversary, and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a locked metal box. I'd always known it was there. Linda had shown it to me on our wedding night in 1996 and said, if anything ever happens to me, everything you need is in here. Don't open it unless you have to. I'd never asked what was inside. Linda was a CPA, and I'd trusted her with everything: our finances, our investments, our future. She handled the money while I handled the house maintenance, the cars, and my engineering consulting work. Now she was gone, and Rachel thought I was just a helpless old engineer who'd never balanced a checkbook. I took the small key from the chain around my neck. I'd worn it every day since Linda died, and opened the box. Inside were documents, so many documents. Bank statements, property deeds, stock certificates, insurance policies, all organized in neat folders with dates and account numbers and notes written in Linda's precise handwriting. And on top, a letter in an envelope with my name on it. For Mason Brooks, my brilliant husband. My hands trembled as I opened it. My dearest Mason, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry I can't be there to help you navigate what comes next. But I tried to make it as simple as possible. You know, I was always the financial one, and you were always the practical one. You let people underestimate you because you never needed them to know how smart you are. But now I need you to be financial too. Everything is in your name. The house, the accounts, the investments, all of it. Dylan is named in my will, but only after you. Rachel doesn't know this. I didn't trust her even back when I was healthy, and I trust her less now. The property deed to our house at 342 Elm Street is in Section A. You'll see it's paid in full, and has been since 2012. In Section B, you'll find documentation for the other properties. Yes, properties plural. I never told you because I didn't want you to worry, but I invested well over the years. In Section C, there are the account numbers for our various investments and savings. The total is substantial. My love, you'll never need to worry about money. I've also included contact information for our lawyer, Shane Parker. You met him at our anniversary parties. He knows everything and will help you if you need legal support. Rachel will try to take everything. I know this because I saw how she looked at our house when they visited, how she asked about property values, how she talked about family assets like she'd already inherited them. Don't let her. You are stronger than she will ever be. I love you. Take care of our Dylan. He's weak when it comes to her, but he's still our son. Forever yours, Linda. I sat at her desk with tears running down my face, reading her words over and over. Even dead, even gone for 14 months, Linda was still taking care of me. I wiped my eyes and pulled out the first document from Section A, property deed 342 Elm Street, Riverside. Owner, Mason Brooks. Paid in full December 2012. I pulled out the next document from Section B, property deed 1247 Oak Avenue, Riverside. Owner, Mason Brooks. Rental property purchased March 2008. Another document. Property deed 891 Pine Street, Riverside. Owner, Mason Brooks. Rental property purchased November 2010. By the time I finished reading through Section B, I was staring at documents for 7 properties. 7, all in my name, all purchased over the past 15 years with Linda's careful investments and my engineering consulting income, all generating rental income that had been automatically deposited into accounts I'd never looked at because Linda handled the finances. I moved to Section C with hands that were no longer trembling. Bank statement, Riverside First National Bank. Account holder, Mason Brooks. Current balance, $478,281. Investment portfolio, Hartford Securities. Account holder, Mason Brooks. Current value, $1,084,7,392. Stock certificates, various companies. Owner, Mason Brooks. Estimated value, $692,485 and dollars. I kept reading, adding, calculating in my head the way Linda had taught me to do when we first married, and I'd been embarrassed that I wasn't good with numbers. By the time I reached the last page, the total was clear. My net worth, not including the house Rachel thought she was taking, was approximately $3.8 million, $3,800,000. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. I sat in my dead wife's office in the dark and laughed until my sides hurt. Rachel had called me an old man who couldn't afford to keep his house. She'd announced in front of 14 people that she was taking my $485,000 home because I was too poor and helpless to maintain it. She had no idea I owned 7 other properties worth more than $2 million combined. She had no idea I had nearly $4 million in assets. She had no idea that Linda had protected me from exactly this scenario. I gathered up the documents carefully and put them back in the box. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the number on Shane Parker's business card. A man answered on the 3rd ring. Parker Legal Associates. Shane Parker speaking. Mr. Parker, I said, my voice steady now. My name is Mason Brooks. I believe my late wife Linda told you I might call. There was a brief pause. Mr. Brooks, I've been expecting your call for months. I'm very sorry for your loss. Linda was not just a client, she was a friend. Thank you, Mr. Parker. I need legal advice, of course. What's the situation? I took a breath. My daughter-in-law has just informed me that she's taking my house. She announced it to my entire family at Thanksgiving dinner today. She thinks I can't afford to keep it, and she's given me until Christmas to move out. Another pause, longer this time. I see, and does she know about Linda's estate plan? No. Does she know about the properties? No. Does she know about the accounts? No. I heard him exhale slowly. Mr. Brooks, I think we need to meet in person. Are you available Monday morning? Yes. Good. Come to my office at 9 a.m. Bring all the documents from Linda's lockbox. We're going to make sure your daughter-in-law understands exactly what kind of mistake she's made. Mr. Parker, I said, I don't want revenge. I just want justice. Mr. Brooks, he replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Sometimes they're the same thing. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. I woke at 5:30 like I always did, made my coffee, and sat at the kitchen table watching the sky lighten over my workshop. I'd spent the weekend going through every document in Linda's lockbox, organizing everything into folders labeled with dates and account numbers. Dana had called 8 times. I'd let it go to voicemail every time. This was something I needed to do alone. At 8:30, I put on my best navy blue suit, the one I'd worn to Linda's funeral, and drove to Shane Parker's office downtown. The building was modern glass and steel, the kind of place that smelled like success and expensive coffee. Shane's office was on the 12th floor with windows overlooking the entire downtown area. He was about 50 with graying hair and the kind of calm, intelligent face that made you want to trust him immediately. Mr. Brooks, he shook my hand firmly. Thank you for coming. Coffee? Black, please. We sat across from each other at a polished conference table. I put my organized folders between us. Linda talked about you often, Shane said, pouring coffee from a carafe. She was very proud of you. Did she tell you what she was planning? The properties, the investments, every detail. She came to see me about 8 months before she died. She said she needed to make sure you were protected. Shane opened his own folder. She was very specific about how the estate should be structured. He pulled out a document. This is Linda's will. The house goes to you for your lifetime. Only after your death does Dylan inherit. And even then, there are conditions. What conditions? Dylan can only inherit if he's not married to Rachel at the time of your passing. If he is, the house goes into a trust for his children only. Rachel can never touch it. I stared at him. Linda knew exactly what Rachel was. We spent the next hour going through everything. The 7 rental properties generated approximately $12,500 per month in income after expenses. My total net worth was $3,847,291 Velier as of last Friday's market close. And Rachel thought I was a penniless old man who couldn't afford his heating bill. Here's what I propose, Shane said. We let her continue thinking that. We document everything she does and says. And then at the right moment, we confront her with the truth. When Shane smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. I'm thinking Christmas dinner. She gave you until Christmas to move out. Let's give her a Christmas surprise she'll never forget. The next few weeks were fascinating. I watched Rachel operate like I was analyzing a faulty circuit. She called me every few days with updates on my transition. Mason, I found a lovely assisted living facility. Sunset Manor. It's $2,800 per month for a studio apartment. Can you afford that on your pension? I could afford it with 1 day's rental income, but I said, I think I can manage, really. Because your pension from the engineering firm is what, maybe $1,900 per month? Where will you get the other $900? She'd been researching, trying to figure out my finances. She had no idea about the rental income, the investments, the accounts generating dividends. I have some savings, I said. Oh, Mason, don't lie to save face. We both know Linda handled everything, and now she's gone. It's okay to accept help. I recorded every conversation using a digital voice recorder Shane had given me. This state allowed one-party consent recording, so it was completely legal. 2 weeks before Christmas, Rachel came to the house unannounced. I was in the workshop rebuilding a carburetor when I heard the front door open. She'd gotten Dylan's key somehow. I came inside to find her in the living room with a tape measure and a notebook, measuring windows and marking down dimensions. Rachel, I didn't know you were coming. I need to measure for new furniture. She didn't even look up. Dylan and I are going to need modern pieces. Your furniture is so outdated. I turned on the recorder in my pocket. You're already planning furniture placement? Of course. We take possession January 2nd, so I need to have everything ordered. She measured the width of the room. We're thinking a sectional here, something contemporary. And we'll knock out this wall to open up the space. She was describing ripping apart everything Linda and I had built room by room. That sounds expensive, I said. Oh, it will be. Probably $80,000 for the full renovation, but the house will be worth $650,000 when we're done. She smiled at me like she was explaining something to a child. See, Mason, this is why you could never maintain this place. You don't understand property values and return on investment. I sent the recording to Shane that afternoon. On December 20th, I sent out invitations. Proper printed invitations on cream-colored cardstock. You're invited to Christmas dinner at the home of Mason Brooks, 342 Elm Street, December 25th, 6 p.m. Formal attire requested. RSVP required. Rachel called within an hour. What is this? You're hosting Christmas dinner? Christmas dinner is at my house, as it's been for 27 years. We're not coming. That's your choice, but I think you'll want to be there. We're going to discuss the house. Ownerships, finances, future plans. I think you'll find it very educational. Christmas Day arrived clear and cold. I cooked the same meal I'd been making for decades. At 6:30, Shane arrived with his briefcase. Everyone, I said, this is Shane Parker, my attorney. Rachel's face went pale. Now then, I said, let's discuss the house. I nodded to Shane, who pulled out documents. This is the property deed showing I'm the sole owner. This is Linda's will, showing the inheritance conditions. And this, I opened the financial portfolio, shows my complete assets. I read through the numbers methodically. 7 rental properties generating $12,500 monthly income. Investment accounts totaling $2.05 million. Total net worth, $3,847,281. The silence was deafening. You see, Rachel, Linda was very good with money. She protected me from people who might try to exploit what they thought was my vulnerability. Rachel was crying now. I was trying to help. No, you were trying to steal, but I'm not pressing charges. Here's what's going to happen. You'll never again discuss taking my house. And if you don't comply, Shane files elder abuse charges Monday morning. 6 months later, I woke to sunshine streaming through my bedroom windows, my house, my workshop, my life. Dylan and I were rebuilding our relationship slowly. Chloe visited regularly now, eager to help Grandpa with his projects. That evening, I sat on my porch with a beer, watching the sunset over the property Linda and I had built together. I'd learned that being underestimated could be a weapon, that documentation was power, and that sometimes the best revenge was simply protecting what mattered most. I raised my beer to the empty chair beside me. Thank you, Linda, for everything. At 58, I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Never underestimate a man who's been loved well, prepared thoroughly, and pushed far enough to finally push back. The sun set golden over my workshop, my house, my life, and it was more than enough. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't showing what you have, it's letting others reveal who they truly are. In a world that judges by appearances, the quiet ones who've planned ahead will always have the last word.